The following podcast may be explicit. One Joe Young presents Adventures from the Shed, a tabletop RPG podcast. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com. Thank you for joining Mickie, JJ, Kurt, Chris, and Joe as we set off on a fully recorded journey using the game Dresden Files Accelerated from Evil Hat Productions. We're sure you'll find this series interesting and entertaining. Enjoy the podcast.
Hi, and welcome to The Shed for Adventures from the Shed. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com on iTunes, Facebook, Google+, Bing, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio. See if I can remember any more this time. Nope, I'm going to say I can't. We're going to be starting something new today, and before we start it, we're just going to go around the table with a quick hi, starting with...
Hi, everyone. This is Mickie.
JJ here, representing the bald, bearded folk.
Hey, this is Kurt, and I love variety, so I am fired up for something new.
Nice.
This is Chris.
He represents just the bald folk. And
Yeah.
This is Joe, and I represent partial beard folk.
And full head of hair folk, despite being old.
I do happen to have a full head of hair. I bought it myself.
as Kurt checks his comb over.
I'm like two weeks past needing a haircut.
So what we are doing today is a twofold new thing here. You've probably heard us play a one-shot of the Dresden Files role-playing game. Well, we wanted to continue with that, and just in the last couple of weeks, we found the Dresden Files Accelerated, which is a slimmer version of the same world and very similar rules based on Fate Accelerated. So we're going to be starting that in our podcast today. In addition to that, we're recording right from the beginning, which is something we haven't done yet. So none of us has a full character concept. Most of us don't even know the rules. We're going to be reading the book as we go. And we're recording the whole thing for your listening pleasure or torture, your choice.
Yeah, you will love or hate this, but it will be educational if you don't know Fate or if you're not familiar with the Dresden world.
Right. And we thought, or I thought, and I think together we agree that it should be interesting to actually hear one of our games right from the beginning, because this is the way a real tabletop RPG group gets together.
Correct.
Forms the world, forms the characters, all the concepts. The one thing that'll be a little different is to protect your listener ears. We're going to try and keep it to one conversation going at a time, which in a way might be cool because we might delve more into individual characters that we'll all be talking about rather than 3 or 4 different conversations going on about several different characters. We're going to pick up right from the beginning. Dresden Files Accelerated is out now. It has been released in June. I have the PDF right now waiting on the hardcover book. But that is available to order at Evil Hat Productions, so it's evilhat.com. No, I did not get this free. I did pay for it. But we've been happy with it so far with the Dresden Files role-playing game, so we're going to try the Dresden Files Accelerated. A little bit about the game itself. It is based on the actual Dresden Files universe, and according to its literature, it covers NPCs and events right through the first 5 novels. So when we get to the point where we're including that, we may be able to incorporate some real Dresden Files world stuff. We're going to start by creating our own area and our own characters and probably have a short mini-adventure before we start incorporating the real Dresden Files world.
And for people who might not know, the Dresden Files is a huge series of novels written by Jim Butcher. It's kind of urban fantasy. Mickie and JJ are super familiar with it. Chris and I are not, so we're going to learn from them.
And I'm semi-familiar.
And Joe
and I'll be learning from them
exactly,
as well.
But some of you listening may not have read those novels and may not even know what we're talking about when we say Dresden Files. But there's werewolves and vampires.
Right. What we mean in this case by urban fantasy, one of you two want to take that?
Urban fantasy is a fantasy-based book. Think magic type world.
It's a what-if scenario.
But set in modern-day urban settings.
So for us, it is 2017 in our world.
Yep,
we don't go back in time. We don't jump forward in time. It's current time, but all that stuff is real. Anything you can think of from mythology and magic and imaginary stuff, it's real, but normal mortals don't know about it, or for that matter, just don't care about it.
Kind of like the whole Buffy, Angel, Supernatural,
Exactly.
Last Witch Hunter,
Exactly like that.
Hellboy kind of stuff.
Yeah, that would technically be urban fantasy,
That would
but
be,
very
yeah.
specific to that, the things that are in Buffy.
Yeah, it all depends on the...
Right.
Yeah, the Patricia Briggs series, the Iron Druid Chronicles, a whole bunch. I mean, there's tons of it out there.
But one of the things about the Dresden Files is anything that you can believe in can become real. Or is already real, and you're just giving it power by believing in it.
Yep.
So all of the different pantheons, deities, mythologies, everything is there. It's just a matter of how strong it is at any given time.
So for people who are listening, I, Kurt, will be your proxy if you know nothing about the Dresden Files. So if someone mentions the white court or something and you don't know what it is, I don't know what it is either. So just, I will ask for you.
Yes.
Oh, I know what I read this
Kurt
morning.
has power of attorney with 2 Harvard degrees.
Right. And I am also going on a totally awesome diet on Monday that requires no alcohol. And so I will be drinking today, and I look around and see that no
Hey,
one
I
else
didn't-
is. So I will also
What'd
be
you
the
bring
drunk
me?
guy by the end of the day. Oh, I'm happy to share with you.
All
Do
right.
you want,
I
do
wanna
you
join
want
in.
us to join in?
No, I mean, as long as Joe's going with me, we'll be fine.
All right. But I only have
Nothing
water
like a
right
hangover
now.
for Father's
Well,
Day.
yeah, we'll have to fix that water situation I've got. All right, so to one point that Kurt said, there are plenty of different things that people don't know about. What we're going to start with, though, is I've printed some of the pages out to help us get started, but we're going to start by talking about our world. And for those who have the printed stuff out there, I want to say that's on page 84. And by our world, I mean the world that we are going to play our game system in. And for us, we have already agreed that we are going to go in our current area where we reside, which is the upstate of South Carolina. To define this area, we're really talking about everything between Charlotte and Atlanta, is the way I'm looking at it.
Yep.
And we're going to treat those as our big cities. But where we live is almost in the middle. We're a little bit closer to Charlotte, but that whole area. So this includes right where I live and where we record here in Greer, where you guys are in Greer, you're in Greenville.
I got family in Spartanburg.
And Chris
Anderson.
is towards right near Charlotte. So we have a lot of area to cover that we're familiar with.
Yep.
And when we start talking about important factions, which is one of the words that's used here, the main parts of those will most likely be in either Charlotte or Atlanta. So think about that as we're going as well.
And for you, if you're listening, well, obviously you're listening. For those of you at home, literally the only decision that we made before recording was that we were going to play in the upstate.
Yeah.
Because we debated, should we play in Chicago? Should we play in
Yeah.
Charlotte? Should we play in San Francisco? And the only thing we decided is upstate. We don't know who's playing spellcasters, who's playing vampires,
right.
who's doing what. We have no idea.
Yeah. And I do like the distinction you just made there that people who are listening are probably at home. They're probably not in this room.
That is true.
Well, you could be listening from your car,
You
Yeah.
could.
On a
your
Stairmaster.
office,
Yeah.
on a Stairmaster, or the gym.
Having sex.
Or a thigh master.
I hope they're not listening to us having sex. Can you imagine?
Well,
maybe
it
maybe we help them
Wait,
spice
listening
it up.
to us having sex or listening?
Listening while they're having
Wild.
Because I hope they're listening.
That's some funny stuff.
So just to be clear on the
yeah.
setting, we're not going to be moving down to Columbia or Charleston. We're going to stay in the I-85 corridor kind
At
of.
least to start. If we need to go out towards the ocean, yeah, we'll hit Myrtle Beach or Charleston or something. Why not?
Okay.
Right. But to start at least, the first adventure we have, which I already have the framework for it, will be something right in Greer, so right where we are. But once we've established all our characters and everything and run that first adventure, then we'll branch out however the heck we
Dude,
want.
is there going to be a murder at the shed?
No.
Oh.
There will be something happening at the shed.
Yeah, I was hoping.
Are we on a ley line?
I was going to say
We could.
it's not much of a spoiler because of where we are. It's got to be important, right? But there will be ley line and access to the ways here at the shed as well.
I don't know what that means, but I look
That
forward to
means
learning.
that's how you get between worlds, essentially.
Ooh.
I mean, that's a short version of it. But
Like a
it's
portal.
It's a way to get from one place to another. There are other references. Isn't it like a Wheel of Time reference in there?
The
or
Wheel of
something?
Time does
I don't
have
know if you're
the
familiar
ways.
with that. No.
Oh, the Robert Jordans?
There's
Yeah.
a ton.
Correct.
I'm not familiar with
In
it.
that universe, the ways have been corrupted, and it's very dangerous to travel the ways.
Cool.
Yeah.
Man, I love learning new stuff.
Dangerous to travel the
Right.
ways in the Dresden world as well.
Yes.
You can get lost.
Yeah. So what I wanted to start with, and I invite anybody else who has the PDF or the printed stuff handy to read out loud or read along. But I'm going to start with page 84, which is us creating the campaign. Where a lot of this, the book is written from the perspective of Ivy, what is it? Ivy?
The Oracle.
The Oracle.
Ivy the Archive.
The archive.
The Oracleish archive.
Orca, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So it's written kind of in the first person at the reader. And so I won't read a lot of that. But what we're really going to start with is, you can see an example here on page 84. They talk about different places and things to include and not include. For example, ghosts and hauntings can be included, the criminal underworld, supernatural ties to history. And in this example, they chose that the fairy courts would not be there as a major power, and the vampire courts would not be there as a major power. These things matter in the world, but we don't need all of those decisions right away. So we want to know what is going to be important. Supernatural, immortal organizations or individuals, groups of mindless but dangerous creatures, types of conflict that are a concern, and any combination thereof. Excuse me. So that's part of it, part of creating the area. And then we also want to identify factions. Now, the factions are pretty much groups of something that are important, that have some form of power, is the way I read it.
So in Greenville, it would be real estate developers.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that could be a powerful criminal gang, yes.
Technically.
Yeah, it could be.
I have to be careful not to slander any clients or potential clients of mine, but that is very true. That the most powerful faction in Greenville would be
The developers.
Now,
family of real estate developers.
I will be keeping some notes on factions myself, but I want you guys, of course, to keep the notes from about your own characters. I'll keep the world stuff handy.
Are we going to do a Google Doc, or are we just going to...
I actually have a Google Doc going right now for this stuff that I'm typing in, but you guys keep your notes however you like, on your computer, on pencil and paper, whatever helps you the best. Okay.
So an idea I have then is it's a recent development that is the reason we're here in Greenville, that our team has formed. So like maybe an extra wide door to the Never Never has formed here because of some action, or a developer may have unearthed it, or something along those lines. Like,
what's the Never Never?
The Never Never is the place where the Fae live. It would be heaven or hell, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay. We could easily have opened that with digging a new hotel in Greenville or Greer or Spartanburg. Easily.
So I think it would be interesting that there's no existing power structure, but everyone's fighting for ground right now.
Because
There's
an opportunity to exploit
exactly
what was just unearthed.
Okay.
That allows us to pull from any specific faction and have them enter slowly.
Well, so this leads to kind of my question, just thinking about my character, was like, do we know each other? Are we friends? Are we from
we
different
haven't
places?
started with the
We haven't
characters
started.
yet. Now, the reason I'll say this is because one of the ways this plays out is you start to create your world first. Because if you create a character and then realize it doesn't fit in the world, once you learn what the world's like, then you probably want to go back and change your character. So they want you to come up with the basics of your world, what's important in the world. So if we were to say, for example, because there's a door to the Never Never open, then Fae are probably starting to have an influence here. That would then make sense that you might have a Fae character.
Yep.
And so I would have thought, preparing for the game, that South Carolina certainly has a rich history of ghosts.
Oh, absolutely.
So I would think, if I were thinking about this region as compared to like maybe Oklahoma, I would think ghosts and haunting type things would be a potentially regular
Do we
occurrence.
know of any spectacular Civil War battles that were fought in this area?
Well, I mean, we've got Revolutionary War battles at Kings Mountain and at Cowpens. We've got
Yeah, I was going to say Cowpens was one. Right?
not actually any major Civil War battles, but we have Sherman passing through. You have burnings in Columbia, Charleston. Most people here were fighting on one side or the other in the Civil War. I mean, there's a lot of that history.
There's a reason there's a North Carolina and a South Carolina.
Well, and there's tons of small battle sites, like even just along the Tiger River in Spartanburg that you never hear about, but where 13 people died in a skirmish. There's a lot of that type of stuff around here. Plus, we're a Cherokee nation here, so we've got Indian history.
Did the Charioteers come out of here?
It passed
Further
the
west.
Appalachian. They did pass through Smoky Mountain, because there's a portion of that Appalachian Trail that goes through the Smoky Mountain National Park.
But also, Greenville's named after Nathaniel Greene from the Revolutionary War. So we could, if we want to do that kind of stuff, we can draw on a lot of different stuff that we'd have to do a little research for. But
So the reason why I said, have this be a developing area, so to speak, is that no matter which faction or which type of character you do, we could all be forming our own alliances because we're all just now entering the area. So it doesn't mean we have to be an established group. That means that we could be forming an alliance. Like, I tolerate your faction, so let's team up to knock these guys out.
I tolerate you. Let's be friends.
And that would be interesting with the way the region is developing. I mean, the upstate is having really kind of significant growth since probably 2005, if not earlier. And a lot of people are coming here from outside, and there's a lot of development. So I like that.
We could also, as long as it doesn't infect anybody, the inland port. We just had an inland port opened up here, and maybe that was the result of something else and magical.
Could be something. No, I'll tell you, I'm going to mark that down as an important place right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because maybe vampires from New Orleans come here through the port, or who knows?
Who knows? It could also be just a means for them to finance their lifestyle. They control that port. Make it simple.
Yeah.
They control that port and bring in either illegal stuff, or maybe that's how they get rid of their bodies and that's how they feed the Red Court vampire.
So we're saying the Red Court vampires are here.
Could?
No, what I was saying is that...
Well, there's no reason to exclude them unless for some reason it interferes with another thought.
So wait.
Because we can say there are two here.
What are Red Court
two
vampires?
Red Court. You don't have that in your book. You have the PDF. Take a look at just so you can look at this.
Just talk to me as if I'm dumb, Dresden dumb.
All right, then
which I am.
You want to?
So there's 3 courts of vampires in the Dresden universe. There's the White Court, which are the succubi. The Red Court are more think of your traditional vampires. Can't go out in sunlight, etc. And there's the Black Court. Those are more creepy Nosferatu.
They're the Bram Stoker.
Which one are the sparkly ones that you want to have sex with?
Those don't exist.
Good.
The closest would be the White Court.
The White Court.
But they're making you want to have sex with them.
Exactly.
So that they can feed off of your life energy.
Yeah, you crave having sex with
One
them.
of the what I think a cool thing from the Dresden Files universe, when they talk about the Black Court vampires, they use Bram Stoker's Dracula, saying that Black Court vampires were supremely powerful until Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was essentially a manual on how to defeat them, came out, and now they hold very little influence because everyone knows how to kill them.
Yeah.
Garlic and sunlight and holy
Stick through the
water,
heart.
right? So everyone knows how to kill them, so they're really not as powerful as they used to be.
Yep, and the same thing with Grimm's Tales. That was a manual on how to defeat a lot of the Fae.
But it's cool the way that he incorporates books that we know and uses those to link the natural and the supernatural. It's nice stuff. But to that point, Kurt, what I was saying, if you want to read some of it on your own, maybe while other people are conversing, page 39 starts the vampire stuff. So you can actually get and it's only a few paragraphs on each one. So once you read the White Court, they give you a couple of some of the people in it. You can skip that and then look at the red and the jade and the black.
Well, I'm also kind of asking because I imagine some of our listeners don't have any idea what these things are.
Yep.
So I definitely want to bring up, because I'll let Mickie take over if she wants to, but she had an awesome idea to incorporate some of the stuff that's in Greenville, and that's the mice on Main.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And now, just so you know, too, I have already started places that I think I was telling you guys in an email. I want to create at least half of the stuff so you guys don't know it until we learn it. But then I want to create the other half collaboratively. So to give you an idea, I already had 4 places that I'm calling places that matter already.
Okay.
And then we'll be creating more as we go as well. But that's great. I want to hear more of those.
So for the people at home,
the mice on Main are like guardians. And maybe they've been there, and they've been part of Greenville. I don't know when they got actually installed.
So for the mice on Main, in actuality, there's 12 of them, right? Throughout downtown Greenville, they're little bronze statues of mice that are they're embedded into the sidewalks.
They're about my size.
Yeah, they are about mice. There's a book that goes along with it, and then you read the book, and it's a nice little walking tour of downtown Greenville is what they're for.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But
Especially for kids.
Exactly, for children. But our idea was to have those mice be sentinels, because there is a doorway to the Never Never near downtown Greenville, and they're kind of the early warning system in case something is trying to come out or go in.
The mouse police never sleeps.
It's like the mouse guard.
Exactly.
It's Jeff Littell song.
I like it.
But yeah, I like that idea that the mice are either a fighting force or just sentinels or whatever. We haven't really decided yet on what. But
what I'm going to do with that is we're going to take it as they are indeed guardians of it, but nobody is sure what they are guarding because they have kept everyone away so far. That way we leave it open as when it's actually breached, it will be news to people.
Okay.
Cool. I like that. That's good. Any other just places that you've looked at and said, wow, that could be something?
Well, the other thing, the other place Mickie talked about was there's a random small garden full of small cottages underneath the bridge that's on the Swamp Rabbit Trail. Mm-hmm. So the Swamp Rabbit Trail in Greenville is a walking trail, and there's this
all the way to
random
Taylor's.
little garden off of it. It's got like three little small houses.
You mean right by Linky Park?
Yeah,
like where the children's garden is?
It's where the children, where the children's garden
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, so Swamp Rabbit Trail is a running, biking, walking path that runs from Travelers Rest, north of Greenville, all the way down south. And you're exactly right. There's this weird little, I think it's called the Children's Garden, and it's got 2 or 3 little houses and then a bunch of plants. And it could totally be a place that like hobbits or fairies or
No, dude, a troll lives there.
Oh,
there's a bridge.
under the bridge.
Under the bridge.
Oh, I like it. That's awesome. That's
Right?
great. Yeah.
Like,
There's that defunct nuclear power plant that was never built, remember?
Yeah.
That could
That's
be
a
kind
good
of creepy.
point.
Yeah.
There was a game that we played with Chris where he had used some of the maps. Or was it? That was John that did it. Yeah. But there was a nuclear power plant being built. And was that
Never
in
finished.
North Carolina?
That's in South Carolina.
It was in South.
It's
And,
not very pony.
so they never finished it.
Yeah.
And it's just a big, empty site with some of the
buildings.
structures
Yeah.
pre-nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
If we could remember the name of that, that's
Yeah,
one that we
look it
could
up.
do.
Well, so there are a bunch of, we can come up with a ton of sites depending on how much we need or how much we want.
I wanted to, overall, by the time we finish our prep stuff today, I'd like to have about 10 places, right? 10 places that seem neat. Because as we come up with each of these, this may give you character ideas. When you start looking at characters, maybe you're familiar with one of these things. Right?
Yeah, maybe you're
Cherokee
a
nuclear power
quote-unquote
plant.
monster hunter, and you're looking for that troll.
Right. So I'm familiar with property
Gaffney.
over in like Spartanburg that is like 400 acres, and on it, you've got the North Tiger River, you've got a ancient family graves, small family burial site that goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War. Mm-hmm. On that one property, that one family, you've got stuff Revolutionary War, Civil War, land where things could live. Mm-hmm. So we could have a site that's something like that. It doesn't have to be that property, but something like that that's outside of Greenville, mm-hmm. but still near enough that we would access it. And then we have to think about things like, is the Ku Klux Klan a faction? Or the guys for a faction or something, because we certainly have had or have some of that here. In the upstate.
Also, because we're talking modern day, when you're talking about outside of Greenville, well, for me, anything from Atlanta to Charlotte's up for grabs because that's a 4-hour stretch. I mean, just by normal mortal modes of transportation, nothing is that far.
I think we could easily have some site at Clemson.
Absolutely. I was just going to say Clemson.
Clemson's a major college, party, school, football university.
Yeah, there's got to be some supernatural group there.
I think a frat house
or something.
Yeah, a frat house at Clemson should be a cult of some kind, or who knows.
Or a coven of witches.
A coven of witches.
God, anyone who listens to this is going to be like, man, this dude hates South Carolina.
You live here happily.
Oh, so a sorority could be a coven of witches.
A sorority could be a...
Like the craft.
Yeah.
I love it. Let's do that.
Okay.
Sorority.
I'm taking short notes on
know.
these so that we can explore them later. So that's good. I like it. All right. So let's talk a little bit about starting characters.
We need more. I got more sites, man.
We do. Hold them for now.
It's
Seriously,
bad when you hold it.
We'll jump back a little bit.
It's hard to hold it. Like eventually
Jot
it
it
just
down.
builds up, and
Jot
you
it
got to
down.
both hands.
Jot it down.
I'm just going to hold the tip.
Or Kurt, type it in, write it down, and bring it up again after.
This is my prep, man. I did all this prep for you. I got all the spots in my head.
All right. I'm cutting you off for now.
I'm on my first drink. Literally my first drink.
Well, I'm not cutting you off from that, and you still haven't given me one. But I do want to start talking about characters because this is probably going to take the most time. We are going to go right to, what the heck page is that? 80, or is it 91, I think?
Yeah.
Who's got that?
Or
Thank you.
What's the other one?
91.
Or you can take your pick. I'm sorry.
I don't know what else there is.
There's a hard
pretty good.
cola of some kind.
I'll try apple.
We'll show everyone what the
You don't
actual.
mind.
It's down the bottom, JJ.
Yeah, so yeah.
This is what actual character creation is like at the shed.
Yeah.
What are you drinking?
What are you drinking?
Do you-
A mix
you
of
need it?
stuff, yeah. Oh, that's what it's like at a lot of regular tables too, not just on the podcast.
If you prefer.
I'm going to try the apple
right.
first, and I may have to take that from you after. How many did you bring?
That's it.
Damn it, Kurt.
But then I might have some minis in my gaming bag that I
There
always
you
keep
go.
there.
All right.
There's a liquor store up the street.
There's one in his
And it's
bag,
Saturday too.
Guys, I'm going to be dry for 6 weeks. The episodes are going to be so boring after this, so let's get it in now, baby.
You're going to see if you can make a 6-week hangover on it today. Nice.
The whole thing about dieting is like you're not supposed to diet. It's just supposed to be lifestyle choices. You make lifestyle changes. You're never on a diet.
That's true.
Bullshit.
Bullshit.
All right, so character creation.
Yep, and the Dresden Files Accelerated character sheet has a very few fields to fill in. It's a pretty simplified character sheet. When we think of things in a normal game like skills or abilities, in this system they're called approaches, and they are flair, focus, force, guile, haste, and intellect. So when it comes to challenges, like we're used to, challenges, conflicts, what have you, you're going to use one of those approaches for that thing, whether it be, combat, investigation, whatever it might be. So when you start creating your character, you'll want to think about which ones are more important to you. I'm going to get to the right page here.
So what? I'm going to have to sneeze. I apologize.
Oh, that's all right. We
So-
waited for it too, though.
Bless you.
And I did read.
Yeah.
the prep,
Oh, yeah,
but
bless you.
it wasn't super clear.
Yeah.
So the approaches.
Well,
dictate
that
in
will
terms of-
matter. That will matter shortly, but yes.
But it dictates kind of the way that your character approaches challenges generally and what he's good at. So you get like a certain, a
Yeah.
+3 in one, a +2 in two others, or whatever.
Yeah.
But we just get to pick that, right?
Yes, there is no random element to character creation in this game. So you have a set, call it an array for your abilities.
Right.
And in this case, it's set numbers for your approaches. And yeah, the what they do, is almost self-explanatory, but I think as we're going, we'll probably read them out.
I'd also
But-
like to note that if I play the shapeshifter or the changeling, I can have different focuses when I'm in my animal form than in my real form.
Nice. Now, for this, we're going to go again through, according to the book. And the idea here is, now that we've identified factions, and in our case, we've mentioned a few things. Kurt, I put down Ghosts from the Past with a question mark as a faction. I'm going to use that at some point. But also real estate developers. We're talking about the Guardians themselves probably aren't a faction, but I'm sure they belong to something.
Yeah.
Right? They're not on their own. They were created by someone, something at some point. So we've got some of the factions. What I'd like to also figure out is 4 factions. Between Charlotte and Atlanta, the way I want to play our world, and you guys as characters would know this, even though we don't have the characters yet. In this area in the southeast, anything that's a faction in Atlanta has a smaller counterpart in Charlotte, and they're probably at odds. Okay, and that's the way that the general overarching thing will be. Charlotte's been growing and growing, and Atlanta's all saturated already, so Charlotte's trying to make moves where it can, and we are right in the middle of both.
Yep.
So we'll be involved in things that come up. Might end up picking sides and fighting for one or the other, that type of thing. So when you think about big factions, whether they be supernatural, like Vampire Court, or Underworld Boss, just some crime lord somewhere, those types of factions are probably going to exist in both places. Just Charlotte will be a slightly smaller version of the same thing.
I could see because Charlotte's a big banking city, and so is Atlanta.
Okay.
So those banks might be owned by some kind of criminal underworld, element, or being run by a criminal underworld.
Which
element.
which white court house would be good as a banking house?
The white.
Yeah, but there are 3 houses.
Which is the one that
There's-
the hot one's from. They're all hot.
Wait, are you talking about?
Within the
The
game, there are
families.
3. There's Wraith,
The Wraiths.
Malvala.
White
whatever.
Court. White Court is
It's Lust that they go
Yeah.
after first, which
Yeah,
might explain money.
I could see the Wraith
Yeah.
household being involved in something like that.
But yeah, that's part of it. So maybe we say it's white court vampires that are over some of the larger banking institutions. Okay.
And the developers are the underworld, or the criminal, the organized crime
So
group.
you think the real estate developers are all mortals and they're just running a racket, essentially? Okay.
Just a thought.
Just a thought.
Well, I mean, that's where we start. We can introduce anything.
I mean, among the mere mortals in the upstate, the real estate developers would probably be the most powerful faction.
But would they be clued in?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Right. Now, chances are whoever's at the top of the chain is, but
I think what
only barely.
Yeah, I think what would be fun is to have the real estate developers or whatever, whoever we decide, they're not clued in. Mm-hmm. And so they're the most powerful, seemingly they're the ones in Talk Magazine and Town Magazine and Greenville News and everything. But in the real deal, they're nothing because you've got whatever, vampires or werewolves or whoever that's really much more powerful.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't it Marcone? Johnny Marcone?
Yeah.
So I could see like that Johnny Marcone kind of in the books. Johnny Marcone is the head of the criminal underworld, and he's just starting to discover the world of the supernatural.
But he's super smart and uses it all to his advantage.
Exactly.
He knows how to shoot werewolves right and stuff like that. So yeah.
So I could see the developers being completely clueless, but with the war between Charlotte and Atlanta, bigger forces are now in play, and they're just starting to realize that the world is much bigger than they are.
And that works really, really well from a real world perspective because, like, the big development projects in Greenville and Greer and maybe even Spartanburg now are not. They're either not local developers or they're local developers working with someone out of Charlotte, Atlanta, Tennessee, because we can't get enough financing from here to do these big deals.
There aren't enough financial institutions that are investing in this area.
Right.
Cool.
So we could maybe one or two of the guys at the top start to either know or start to learn about the supernatural, but I would say generally they'd be fun to have them as just mere mortals. Powerful, but nothing.
Or they were sent here originally by one of the banking institutions to uncover that thing. That's why the banking institution's been funding them so much to develop the upstate, to find this power grab.
Or they're funding the clueless because they know they're digging in the right place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That could be. So where normally you're not getting the financing, all of a sudden the big bank just said, sure,
Finance
you can have a few million,
Yeah,
as long as you're digging there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
That's so that they're
And this is all fiction.
Totally fiction.
Yes, it is fiction.
No real estate developers in the upstate have sold their souls to the devil in any respect.
Hold on, let me make sure my Bank of America app is closed before we continue. It's probably listening to me right now. Cool. Now, just so you know, that kind of thing is what's going to end up being an adventure later in our campaign. So that's cool. We're going to go to page 86 now, which is identifying the player characters, and that I think I have that printed. Yeah, I have it printed for those who have it printed out, for those on the PDF. So let's have somebody else read a little bit from that page. So I'm not doing
the idea is that you start with, if someone has a strong idea about a character they want to play, then he or she should tell us what that is.
I do, actually.
Yeah. So in this case, too, part of what the page is saying is we're not creating characters, but we're identifying them right now, and then we'll be creating them.
Right, and so I think what this says is whoever has the strongest idea of what they really want to play, tell us. Then the next person goes, and you tell us what you want to do, and then you have some tie to the first character.
Yep.
And down on the line. So
I had a loose idea for a character.
I
probably have more
I got
filled out.
a pretty good idea right now.
And just so you know, I like the way they do that. Say what your tie is to the first character, but I will also be doing a bunch of questions like was in the one-shot.
Yeah.
So that'll be after as well.
So my name is Cletus Fitzhammer.
How much of this have you written down so far?
Just Cletus Fitzhammer.
Okay. So somebody, either you or somebody else, needs to take notes because I'm taking world notes.
I got
but
it.
Make sure. All right. Thank you, Kurt. To make sure we capture this so that when we start linking them together.
So yes, Cletus Fitzhammer.
Does he have a nickname? He's got to.
Cletus.
Yeah, just Cletus. Everyone enjoys his name that much.
So that's not his real name?
That's his name.
Okay.
But it's also his nickname.
But when he gets drunk, people call him the Hammer.
The Hammer. Okay.
But the concept I have is he's a cop of the wizard world.
Okay.
Yeah, he's law
You're talking
enforcement.
like a warden?
Like a warden.
He's a warden.
Okay. But he may not be a warden of the Wizard Council.
Exactly.
Okay. And for those who don't know what that means, you can look it up.
Yeah.
But we will be talking more about magic, wizards, the councils, and what have you as we go. But for now, he's...
So, like, I don't know how I want to go with it so far, as where, like, maybe he's not a practitioner himself. He just has magical weapons or what have you. I'm not really sure where I want to go with this.
Do you mean he's
yet.
a cop who is keeping the wizard world in check, or he is a wizard cop?
Is he
a wizard cop.
But is he an actual human law enforcement officer?
That's where I'm not sure I want to go with.
Okay.
I don't know if I want him to be the police department liaison who has magical weapons, or he's actually a wizard and he polices the wizards.
Or, he could be a wizard who is on one of the local law enforcement forces and became a police officer to keep an eye on those with supernatural abilities.
And there's actually an officer position in the Greer police department called Community Outreach Officer. And they spend their times at schools and other places just meeting people and talking to them about the police. And that could be an interesting... perspective. Yeah.
That's
There's a little bit of that bureaucracy you're wanting.
Exactly.
He's a bureaumancer.
You're a bureaumancer.
So you're not anti-wizard. You're not like a Templar in Dragon Age.
No. People and
He wants to keep wizards that are doing bad things in check.
make sure they're staying in their lane.
Okay.
Or also
make sure they're staying in their lane.
Identifying
without a
people
blinker,
who develop magical powers.
Yeah, I like the idea of being like a resource officer,
Yeah.
community resource officer, or
Community outreach.
That way I can meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I identify those with the talent.
Yeah.
And
because I know the actual officers in Greer spend a lot of time at schools.
so maybe
So they bring canine units around and talk to kids in schools.
maybe whatever's been uncovered is increasing, is a feedback loop in creating more talented people.
Ooh, I got an idea. You guys, right near where you live, have a housing unit, housing area going up. Was it Westgate or whatever
Something
the heck
like
that is? And it's right next to a school.
Yep.
So that could work.
So that is creating more kids with
talent.
A spark of talent. It's sparking more talent.
So we don't want to talk now about what that character looks like other than as the conceptual level.
Right. Now we have an idea of one character.
All right,
It's just a concept. We haven't made anything yet.
You have something, Mickie?
I do. I want to play Buffy. So I want to go with Monster Hunter.
It's going to be interesting if I go with mine.
So you want to be
Are you playing Spike?
supernatural or human?
No,
Angel?
human
No,
who
but I got
understands
vampire
the
idea.
supernatural
Okay.
very, very well. So
Because
I've
Buffy's
got
a little extra natural.
She is extra natural. So the Cherokee Nation kind of sparked this idea. So maybe I'm part Cherokee, grew up in the mountains areas, learned all that
Like the
lore.
Maggie Valley area, stuff like that.
Exactly. Have all that lore, and as a result of that, that's my tie into the supernatural world.
Okay.
All right.
Now,
I like it.
how do you...
Are you human?
how
Pure
are-
human, or do you have magical abilities?
Don't know yet.
We're going to
I
see...
would need some access to
As
some
we
magic.
get closer, one of the things that's different between this game and the full RPG is in the full RPG, like the one-shot we played, mortals have stunts and the supernatural have powers. In this game, it's all stunts. So things might overlap to where she's practically supernatural, and we can figure that out as we go.
Yeah, it's just a role-playing
Now,
element.
if we go by the book here, Mickie, you need to define, not defy. You'll defy it later. But define a tie that binds you to JJ's character.
So start thinking of a reason why you know me.
Yeah.
How old are you?
You can think
Are
about
you like a start out in high school Buffy
That's a good
stage,
point.
or
You may have
that's
met
how
up
you
with the
know?
community outreach officer in high school.
And you could be out of high school, but you know him from that.
I've known him
originally.
since high school.
Yeah.
Okay. We could go with
You
that.
could have jerked him off in the back of a car in high school. I mean, anything's possible.
Well, you're a wizard, right?
So she didn't have to use her
This
hands.
podcast is meant for
My
mature
name's
audiences.
Telekinetic hand
Not
jobs.
Harry.
No, I know, but you're a wizard.
I haven't decided yet, but maybe, yes.
So
Well, yeah, we'll see how
And
much deeper it goes.
us meeting
That's what she
around
said.
high school, that's when you would have, if you go the wizard route, that's when your spark would have manifested. And I could have recognized it, and maybe that's how we met and have kept in touch with you since.
You can think about it.
So the link, though, the thing that binds them together is you met through the community outreach thing.
Program.
Through my
Yeah.
position as
Yeah.
an officer.
Yeah.
Okay. So that links.
She was a narc
You wanna
in
go,
high
Chris?
school.
Yeah, Kurt just fingered you, Chris.
I think Chris has a particularly good idea in light of what Mickie just said.
Oh, yeah?
Well, my plan was the
vampire
whole
slayer killer.
You slay the slayer.
Yeah.
Slayer.
We're going to have a
the
Buffy
police?
Spike dynamic here.
No, I just had an idea of being a Catholic priest, but he's a vampire,
Okay.
and he's trying to, repent for.
One of the really neat things in the Dresden Files universe is the Knights of the Cross,
Yeah.
which essentially have swords that were made from the nails from the crucifix.
Yeah. Saw that.
And it was like, it's a really neat idea, and in the books it's played off very well. They're crusaders. I mean, now one guy, granted, is an atheist, but still,
Yeah.
it's what
I'll
you
use the magic
It's how you believe, not necessarily what you believe that matters.
Right. That's all I had was a loose idea of a guy that's maybe he could save his soul and not be a vampire anymore, but he wants that power because he's a bad thing, but he can do good with it.
So you're still a virgin. You haven't slaked your thirst yet.
Well, I don't know if I want to go that. Yeah, I don't know though, but maybe I have. But I got. That's the thing. It was just a loose concept.
Now, some of it we'll stay within some of the boundaries of the Dresden stuff we're familiar with. For those who are familiar with it, but within this game system, there's no reason we can't just play whatever the heck we want.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as it fits one of the mantles, the stunts, what have you. As long as it fits there, you can describe your character, I think, in any way you'd like.
Yeah, I love it.
So how is Churchy McBoy, bound to Buffy?
She could be one of his parishioners, maybe. I don't know. But that's
Maybe she's tried to kill
I'm
him.
going to keep saying Buffy until
maybe
you come
she
up with a
came.
character
Maybe
name.
she came after to kill me, and then found out he's trying to do good. Maybe I'll let him go. Could be that. That's more interesting.
That makes more sense from
That
a
makes more
party
sense.
perspective.
Yeah.
It would
All right,
also
so there's
totally
your
make
link.
sense that
Who's making notes of this? Because
I
I'm
am.
not making the character notes.
It would
yet.
also totally make sense that as a Catholic priest, he diddled JJ when he was just a little boy. And,
hand jobs in the back of the car. Telekinetic hand jobs in the back of the car.
The preceding podcast was definitely explicit.
right, so we will need. Kurt's in rare form. We will need
Medium rare.
Does he need a connection? Just
Are you really going with Buffy?
Why not?
Buffy Summers.
what was
as far
Buffy's
as-
real first name?
It was Buffy Ann Summers.
Buffy and Summers.
So essentially, the way it reads, Kurt, is the bond must be something that demand the characters are involved in each other's life, for better or worse, and then you work together to ensure both agree with it, and then repeat this procedure until every player has a character to portray. So in this case, if we repeat the procedure, then the next person has is bound to the previous one.
Right. So as long as you have one bond, you don't have to have a bond to everyone. As long
Not
as you have one.
necessarily.
Right.
Well, you can. There's
I
no
like the
reason you
idea.
can't.
You guys need to work on yours, I think. But I like the idea that she came to kill you because she knew you were a vampire, and for whatever reason, some view of innate goodness, she decided not to. But you've got an eye on him, and
I think
and
it was
you know.
because he started to cry and she felt pity.
Well, I mean, I think that's actually, especially if we end up being a party. That makes
Or maybe
a ton
I
of
kicked her
sense.
ass and told her what was up.
That could be too.
That's
I'm one of the good
hilarious.
guys.
And that's part of what they say here, that you both you work together to agree with it, but it could be better or for worse.
Yeah.
So you might actually not get along well, which I'm sure will happen between Mickie and JJ's character.
Exactly. I was thinking,
And he just said exactly, Pam. Didn't even pause.
going off what Chris just said. Maybe you did kick her ass, but
I told her my back history a while.
well, you let her go, and she's like, okay, maybe he's not a monster,
Right.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
I'm seeing this from almost a comedy movie
go
or
with
a
that.
comic. Every time you're punching her in the face, but I'm really not a bad guy. And stay down.
Just stop trying to kill me.
Yes. Cool, Kurt.
All right, so
So
I've
you're
got,
typing, so if you want to finish
Yeah,
that.
that's
I'm a
fine.
pervy lawyer from Boston.
I'm totally into like Rinse the chains and French maid outfits.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
So is it supernatural?
He's gonna be a 1%er. His name is Dorian Gray.
Nice.
So I have three.
Right up his alley.
I had 2 or 3 potential characters, and I would be happy to play any of them.
Well, let's say one of them for now and see how everyone else feels about
All right,
it.
so my first thought, without having heard anyone else's, was that I was going to play a guy who's really skilled in kind of, because the upstate, even though we've got Greenville, Spartanburg, these cities, we've got mountains and lakes and tons of
Lots.
outdoors. And so I was going to be kind of the guy you would think of as the good old boy in camouflage.
You could be part of Do Not Resuscitate. Department of National...
Oh, Natural Resources.
Resources, yeah.
Well, kind of.
It's DNR, that's all I think.
DNR. Yeah. So I envisioned kind of a character who grew up hunting and fishing and really loved fly fishing, loved the woods. Maybe now runs a fly shop with his dad, a hunting and fishing shop with his dad, and is like the real outdoors guy.
You can do, and I'm just going back to what I just said. With the DNR, they actually have park wardens too. You could, you got all those options.
And my thinking was just kind of. He's a smart, good guy, but he's a real outdoors guy. And I was thinking that would lead into either some type of, without knowing Dresden, some type of druidy or rangery or shapeshiftery.
You could have run into a lot of different things.
Well, and then I would have seen potentially werewolves or a lot of the stuff that might not live necessarily right downtown. So that was idea one.
Now, something really similar in genre is Iron Druid that Kurt, you are familiar with. I see no reason if we can find a mantle and stunts and stuff to fit. There's no reason you can't be a druid.
Yeah, and I didn't necessarily view him as the Iron Druid. I thought about that, but
something like it.
It could also be kind of. I mean, I even thought about playing him as a pure human, but who's got kind of a marksman. Like I almost never, who's crossbow,
and
rifle,
a green thumb, probably
green thumb, animals like him, and then maybe get some kind of supernatural communion with nature, but not necessarily like an Iron Druid type level.
Okay.
Number 2 would be the 1%er mantle.
Yeah.
And it would just be, I'm an old, not a real estate developer, not a modern wealth, but I'm an old upstate family, maybe in textiles. I've got a ton of money. I've got access to all those resources in the upstate and the families that I know.
With 40 acres and a Revolutionary War grave site on your property.
Exactly. So I could probably role play that fairly easily. And number 3.
Wait, what? I like that. You got 40 acres?
I mean, my wife's family is a very, very, very old Spartanburg family. So,
okay, that's cool.
And the 400 acres with the graveyard may or may not be their property.
Neither confirmed nor denied.
So it would be easy to role play that.
I like that.
And number 3 would just be playing someone from somewhere else, like not from here, who came back either to study or for a girl. And then it would be kind of the bookish research guy.
Okay.
I'd be happy playing any of those kind of archetypes.
And on that note, I want to mention, too, that nobody actually has to be from South Carolina. You can be from Paris if you want. Doesn't really matter. The point is we need to know why you're here now. But
my first 2 would be from here, or at least from Western, like the hunting guy might be from Boone, Western North Carolina. But the bookworm would be kind of from somewhere else.
Myself, I like the idea of the outdoorsy type because that would, thinking of the full party thing, that would fill a gap that we don't currently have. A police officer, a monster hunter, and a priest. Now, granted, any of those could know how to fish, but it doesn't quite fit the extensiveness that you put into the first thought.
And my thought was, depending on the way where the campaign went, is I would have probably access to a lot of places that the Fae would. Again, I don't know how Dresden works. Like maybe the Fae are just right downtown, but in my thinking,
you wouldn't know it.
They want to be in pretty places, so they're going to be up at Table Rock, or they're going to be, Rainbow Falls, or.
I like the idea of him doing the naturey type person, and I like the idea of maybe you were once the prey of the wild hunt, but you managed to survive, and because of that, the Hunt King, made you. One of his favored or something, and that imbued some supernatural powers upon you.
Kurt doesn't know what that means. Right? But,
so the
but
king,
that's something. I mean, we could just work that in later after understanding more of what it means. You might not even know that. Your character might not even particularly know that as we start the game, but it could be something that comes up in backstory. Realistically, say you're playing a 40-year-old character. We don't know 40 years of history yet. Right. It could come up at almost any time.
And the other thing is we could combine 1 and 2 a little bit, maybe, in that if we wanted access to some resources, and I know this from a client of mine who the family's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but he's just is one of the kids, and all he wants to do is hunt and fish and farm, and he's in camouflage, but he's got $40 million in the bank, and he's. I mean, so if we want or need that type of access, I could combine those.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of the old money guy.
But really just wants to be out in the woods.
Yeah, but you don't know it. You don't know he is.
You own half of the woods you go into.
Yeah, I mean, whatever works for the party.
He's got his mountain.
Now, how would
compound.
that person be linked to the Catholic priest? Vampire.
I would probably be linked to the part Cherokee woman who has high knowledge of mountain lore. We would have crossed paths somewhere.
Maybe.
Or, I don't know. I'd have to think about what my links are. I don't have a clear link. How would I link to JJ, maybe?
Find something. There, it is easily possible or probable that you ran into anybody at any
Yeah,
given
I mean,
time
to be
in the
honest, I don't have a
area.
clear
What
link
would
to
that
any of the
be?
three. So
You donated a natural gas police car, and that is my car now.
Yeah, I mean, we can.
Ooh, go hybrid.
Yeah.
Ford Fusion is now a hybrid. They've made a police interceptor version, and Greer will probably have them in a couple of years. So that makes sense that we could throw one in there now.
Maybe I anonymously, because again, I don't want to be seen as the rich guy. I'm the good old, like, maybe I anonymously donated the entire Greer's hybrid police car force, but you, because you're the bureaucrat with all the inside knowledge, figure it out and you know where it came from. Or some, I mean, who knows?
It could be, yeah.
Fair enough.
I don't think I would have a clear link to Chris off the bat. My guy would definitely not be Catholic.
Well,
Doesn't
that
have to
could
be
be
Catholic.
I was raised
Yeah.
Catholic, and I don't want to have to role play that.
I understand. So yeah, well let's all right. Let's make sure we have all those notes together, and we can start talking about beginning creating the characters. We can talk about character creation. Although technically, the next page in the book, 87, talks about the factions. Now, this I do think I want to talk about, but I want to do some of them without you guys knowing. So I don't want all of them to be open. But we'll talk. I guess we'll talk about this briefly. We're actually getting close to an hour, so this may fill up this hour. Let's see what we've got. So on page 87 is detailing factions. In there are several pieces. So like, what is the goal of the faction? What is it they want? And then they may have a secret goal, and that's something I'll do. Like I said, it's a secret. Obstacles. What's in the way of the faction of from achieving their goal? What resources do they have? What are their weaknesses? And aspects, which are a game mechanic that we'll read about soon. It is part of what I printed out. The game aspects, or the aspects, what would you give to them? And then lastly, what is the next thing the faction plans to do? And it says right after that in the book, the GM chooses whether to do this on her own, because I'm a her, without the players, or engage it in open discussion in the same manner as before. So let's talk a little bit about ones we came up with. Let's talk about the clueless to the supernatural real estate developers. Kurt, what's the goal of a real estate developer?
To make as much money as possible in a shorter period of time.
Okay. I'm just
Which
gonna type
requires
that down.
controlling the local political process and public opinion so they can purchase and develop land.
All right. And then the next thing we're looking at there is going to be the obstacle. What obstacle is standing in their way? And this would be in general, or if you want to pick a specific, we can make up a name of a real estate developer, and what is their specific obstacle, or just in general, what are the obstacles?
Well, so generally, there's always going to be pushback that we're developing too fast and we're ruining the good old town or the good old upstate that people love. And so we could embody that with a particular mayor or a member of the city council who doesn't want 14 hotels built in the next 5 years.
So pushback from, I'll call it pushback from the locals. Is really what it's like when a new Walmart's coming in. Nobody wants Walmart.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's the locals that are pushing back in the way you're saying it. They don't want to get their communities changed, and maybe they have a whole bunch of brick houses, and we're about to put up 3-story vinyl-sided houses or something like that. Any other obstacle other than that type of thing that we would want to name now?
I would say like a competing faction that's seeing the opportunity here, and they just kind of swoop on in.
Yeah, like maybe there's. I mean, when I think of the real estate developers, I'm thinking about local folks. Maybe there's an Atlanta group that has way more money and wants to be dominating the
trying
projects.
to bid war or
Right.
So I'm going to put that in as a larger group from Atlanta.
Yeah.
So not only do you have pushback, but you also have more money overachievers.
Right. And in some cases, like an Atlanta group would hire or basically kind of subcontract with a local developer. But in other cases, they would just want to beat them out.
But in this case, we're saying the real estate developers here, local in the upstate, are their own faction. So they want their own power. The ones we're talking about wouldn't be run by Atlanta or Charlotte.
Right, so this actually makes a ton of sense. So generally, in the real world, forgetting about Dresden, the way it works is you've got, like, let's say the number one upstate real estate developer wants to do a project. And he doesn't have quite enough money. He goes to a Charlotte or Atlanta group and gets them to come in, and they do it together. But maybe our local developers don't want to do that. And so maybe they make a deal with a vampire or a ghost. Or, I mean, I don't know who it is.
Or a rich druid.
Or rich druid, so that they don't have to deal with the Atlanta faction or the Charlotte faction.
So let's talk about what the next step is then. Resources. When we're talking about our local upstate real estate developers, what resources do they have, people, places, and things that they can bring to bear to help them achieve the goal of making as much money as possible in a short period?
Money, banker friends, control of local charitable boards. I mean, they're kind of what you would think of as they're the movers and shakers socially.
They have people in government, law enforcement.
Yeah, people. Yeah, it could be organized crime.
Organized crime.
Ties to organized crime.
For our game, I think that's all makes sense.
Because that's not true in the real world. And what would the weakness of these real estate developers be?
Lack of knowledge. Of
stupidity.
Greed.
Ignorance.
Avarice.
Lack of culture.
You don't have any strong feelings about them, do you?
I mean...
greed, definitely. I'm thinking the others, like a lack of culture. These are going to be the local people, so they certainly have plenty of culture to be here. So is that really a weakness? Probably not.
Well, I'm also thinking kind of old money, new money. So I think of the real estate developers, and again, these are just an archetype for our game.
Yep.
They're new money, and so they've got a lot of money, a lot of control, all this stuff. But then in the upstate or South Carolina, you've got all this old money, and they're the ones that fought the Civil War, and they're the ones that own the land and have the graveyards that may have ghosts and vampires and all this stuff, and they're not aligned with the new money.
Okay.
So then I'm going to put a weakness there.
And they resent, to some degree, the old money resents the loss of power, or at least perceived power to new money. On the other hand, maybe they're a lot more powerful. Who knows? I mean, I don't know how our game's going to play out, but that's a kind of a classic struggle, right?
I'm going to put as one of their weaknesses their dependency on their financial sources. Because they don't have all the money on their own. New money's being brought in.
They don't have a non-stop cash flow.
So one way you could attack them is to cut off their financing.
Right, and so maybe the old money, the source of their power is not so much money as history. Yeah. And whatever that means to our world.
It's knowledge of...
Connections to the...
Connections between X, Y, and Z. Favors to ask for.
Right, like if in the upstate, if you're in... What are the old families, the Montgomerys, the Clevelands, the Johnsons. You've been here for... No, not Schumachers aren't from here at all. Been here for 300 years. You've got a lot of money, but maybe the reason you've got that money is because you figured out how to deal with the vampires and the werewolves. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but that's...
You're talking about a whole other faction. We're talking about the developers here, guy.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the opposition. The main opposition to the developers is ultimately going to be...
We're talking about weaknesses, not
right,
opposition.
So the weakness is going to be, if they get too powerful, there's going to be the old money folks that want to keep them in check.
And cut them off.
And that we already have them as an obstacle. So that works.
Okay, done.
Yeah, it works. It works together. And then the last thing for a faction is, what are the next steps? What is the next thing this faction plans to do? And it ought to be big enough that it affects other people.
Yeah. By the way,
it's
Chris,
not just one new house somewhere.
Since you're from Charlotte, you should chime in here too, because we're kind of talking about Greenville, Greer.
Well, I'm not really from Charlotte, though.
Well,
no.
That's
I can't really speak to a lot of stuff down south.
He's still in South Carolina in the Fort Mill area, but it's closer to Charlotte.
Yeah. So I'm thinking almost like Mickie and I, we've gone to Nashville twice now, and they just built they just built a gigantic convention center. Okay. So I think that would be the next step, is to build a convention center and have Greenville be a destination for businesses to come and have conventions.
Okay.
Yeah, or any political parties or organizations.
Exactly.
Something major like that to draw more
or even
traffic.
it can even double as like a sports thing too. It could be all encompassing.
So what is this goal for the
For the real estate developers.
Yeah, getting the NCAA.
Okay.
I mean, being at the level where you consistently are getting national quality events.
And to do that, they have to build a major complex.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
Tear down the TD.
The TD
maybe they'll destroy the nuclear place and build a convention center there.
Yeah. And then let's see.
And then they find out why the nuclear place stopped being built.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably the clearest faction that we had come up with so far. So I'm going to leave that one as is for now. And we won't do any more of the detailing of the factions. However, let's see.
And maybe instead of, this is just for you as a GM, maybe instead of just real estate developers, maybe it's kind of new money.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've been focusing on building stuff, though, so I think it works.
You want to have the option to add people into that universe that may not be true.
Well, I would probably just add them as another faction.
Yeah.
As another group of people bringing new money into the area.
Like real estate developers could easily have a banker contact that would be integral to them.
Yeah.
So let me, we'll talk about one thing that JJ brought up earlier as far as what might start the whole campaign off, even though I do have our first adventure set up. It'll be a one-shot, probably an hour or two. But what the next step is in the book on page 90 is determine the inciting incident. So what actually causes us to get started in this world? And I think we pretty much said that there's going to be a real estate development that digs open a portal, and we are going to use that as what gets us started. Do we want to give any more information about that? So clearly the faction that got it started was real estate developers. But
maybe it's like a nexus of power. Like it is a convergence of ley lines, or
But what got that?
Was it by accident or specifically done on purpose?
Because I think even a mortal chopping into that with a backhoe probably doesn't realize it. I mean, what actually happens that makes that significant? What were you going to say, Mick?
I thought we started it with a portal into the Never Never.
Yeah, that's what it was. But it happened because somebody was digging somewhere and found it, and we're going to point that at the real estate developers.
What if it's when I said it originally, not a portal to Never Never, but a
door,
wide open door,
doorway.
Like not a doorway, because a doorway implies one person single fire at a time. I'm talking about a gigantic gate. It may not be that. It may not look like that in scale, but the idea that an entire army could cross through at that place, that's what I'm talking about. Something on that scale. Okay. And maybe it's close to where the Winter Court is fighting the Outsiders.
But what I want to know is, on this side, once that happened, how did you guys even hear about it?
It's got to be either my character has... Well, let's decide if my character already has connections to the Fae, in which case this would be something that maybe they would know about.
Well, I'd like to tie it into the Sentinels, the mice.
Oh, yeah.
The mice were guarding this thing, this gigantic doorway. That's why they were there.
They would at least be aware of it.
Yeah, I like it.
I already had another thought with the mice, but they can be part of this as well. That was a secret part. All right. I think that's going to get us to the point where when we start up our next session, we are going to be creating our characters, filling in our character sheet, picking the pieces that go along with it. In the meantime, I think we're going to wrap this one up, and we can all say...
Sayonara.
Nice to listen.
See ya.
Hasta luego.
The preceding podcast was brought to you by One Joe Young. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com.